think all three of us, there are really like kind of five major partners in the alliance, and Nicole will talk a little bit more about the roles of those partners, all of us. But today we'll talk about. I want to just give you some background. I'm going to kind of be institutional memory and context, so I'll talk a little bit more about formation. Nicole's going to talk about current mission and services and how that work is aligning. Anna's going to take us through the coordination and benefits and the reason, as we've moved to co-location, probably I think we've been in together in the space for about almost 3 years. And then again, we will have some open discussion at the end. So in terms of how did we get here, that's kind of where I'm going to start. And again, serving more as institutional memory. MSU, just to give you a context about us, land grant, but very high research classification. Also, because of that land grant mission, a number of our core research facilities are regional. But also, as you can see, we have an undergraduate research office very committed to student research experiences, which also lends itself to the actual formation of this idea. And then you can kind of get a sense of our expenditures in research over the last fiscal year. So just to give like some, again, context for how we got here. This was a long game. We went through a number of, a former dean of the library, a leader in UIT, and then our vice president for research. Those positions sometimes change, but there was a strong thread and interest in keeping some kind of research success, partnership, and enterprise in place through leadership changes. Initially, the partnership was really kind of it was information technology on campus and library, but we realized we needed much more than that to really tap into where research success could happen and research alignment, aligning the research enterprise with the goals of several partners. So eventually, initially, 10 years ago, it was a smaller partnership. Then with the current partners, we were a virtual partnership for about 2 years before the space that you're going to hear about. And I have a couple pictures just so you can see it. Before the space and the funding for us to become a working alliance happened. We also, in that time, we worked with a number of people, including Rebecca Bryant, to just strategize about the research development partnership. We tend to work in all levels of the research process and cycle. So that's kind of what I'm showing here. You can see there are different ways that the partners engage in, whether it's, you can imagine roads, the library component really focused on that sort of right side, the publication presentation. But then you've got Nicole's office, the Office of Research Development, which is really focused on the green component, the planning and proposal development. And then all of us are kind of, whether it's Anna really placing and finding students that are interested in research or having a research experience, all of that flows into this process. The partnership, this is kind of a working statement, and I think this is important because this is something we drafted together. And you can have different opinions of mission and vision statements and how it's sort of purple prose, but the act of kind of naming who you are and what you are is essential in this process. That's part of the coordination that Anna and the sort of ownership that Anna is going to mention when she speaks. I won't go into too much detail. I just want to give you a look at the current partners so you can see different units. Center for Faculty Excellence is our sort of professional and teaching and faculty development office. And then you can kind of see these others. Research Cyber Infrastructure is the university IT component that is part of this, and they run a number of things. But if you think of like our systems, high performance computing, even further now, access to GPUs for artificial intelligence work. And then you've got the library, which is, working through what pieces of what the library bring to this data science and scholarship, open scholarship. The floor plan, we're up on the third floor, and I just want to give this visualization so you get a sense of where people are in the room. The one note I would make is that down in the bottom left corner, there's the undergraduate research students have a space where they are offering consult and various other advice on research itself, mostly peer-to-peer. But you can kind of get a sense of like who's in the space. You can see libraries up in the top corner. Center for Faculty Excellence has a couple of different people. And then you can kind of see where RCI, that's Research Library Infrastructure, and the ORD, Office of Research Development, are located. But we've got teaching spaces, meeting spaces, the reception desk. I don't want to like the coordination of this. It's not like somebody walks in the door and there's a concierge that moves them to a very dedicated like pathway through this. It's ad hoc, and we're very comfortable. We know what each other. We have different roles in the partnership, and we refer. And at some points, somebody might walk in and only really work with CFE, Center for Faculty Excellence, and ORD for their question, right? So the coordination is pretty, I would just say, organic, natural. This is just a picture. There's some teaching spaces. This is a workshop that's happening right out. This would be right outside my door. There are also meeting spaces. This is some members of the CFE team saying there are offices in the space. And then there are consult spaces, and this is where our RCI group is kind of like right around the corner from me, but they have visualizations on how their systems are working, but then they're also offering office hours and consult on setting up tech, usually tech that's to advance research. So that's a little bit about how we got here. Nicole's going to take us through where, what are the different roles and how does that work? So Nicole, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Jason. And I'll just move through this really quickly so we can get to the good stuff. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea, a little bit more about who is involved in this research alliance, my office, Office of Research Development. This is the office that is focused on resourcing research through external funding, through innovative collaborations, that sort of thing. So we are in the very beginning of that research life cycle that Jason presented earlier of the new ideas and the planning and proposals. So I would say we're often the first stop one might make at the Research Alliance. So next slide. RCI, as Jason mentioned, that's sort of our computing core facility. We worked with them actually to get a high performance computer for them, funded by NSF. And so as they are gaining more equipment and more cutting edge resources and building our own, cat chat model, they are often the second stop on, okay, we're thinking about proposing this project to a funder. What are the resources we're going to need to be able to do this work? Mm-hmm. Undergraduate research. So Montana State is one of the national leaders in undergraduate research. Anna could correct me, but I think we might have been the first ones in the country to fund it. Is that right?
We were the first
ones to do something.
We were the first university in the country to fund students in every discipline, as well as the first to require research credit to graduate in every single discipline.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So undergraduate research is something that is way more tied in to the faculty research experience than any other university I've been at personally. And so this can, I wouldn't say be like the third stop along the alliance. As Jason said, it's not a linear pathway, but this is something that undergraduate research is getting embedded into all the various work of our unit. So if we're talking about building a budget or developing the research strategy for a proposal, are you going to want to put in a budget line for an undergraduate research, or who's going to be doing this work? Or if you're working with Center for Faculty Excellence, a lot of their focus is now on providing the best experiences for undergraduates in the classroom and in these research positions. And so we have this innovative program at MSU called the Undergraduate Scholars Program, and that is where the state of Montana actually pays undergraduates to participate in faculty's members' labs.
Mhm.
Next slide. Center for Faculty Excellence. This is a pretty standard unit across all campuses. I'm sure you all have something similar to this. We work very closely with them on bridging the gap between teaching and research and trying to integrate the two as closely as possible. So they are very focused on curriculum development, on sabbatical, on professional development, mentorship, and also how those intersect with research. And then there's Jason's team, Rhodes. I feel like Rhodes is just making headlines all over MSU these days with all the focus across MSU and the state on how do we work with AI in the classroom? How do we work with AI in research? And anything else you want to say about Rhodes, Jason?
No, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay.
Mhm. So
All right.
I think it's Anna. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. I was answering a question on the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So as Jason and Nicole mentioned, we are co-located for the most part. We have at least representatives from all of our units who have kind of a home base in the Research Alliance space. Some of us have members in other buildings. I actually am in a building right behind the library. And so it's not perfect, but it works out really well nevertheless. A few reasons why the co-location is great, and just the coordination. We feel like we are really bridging sort of the two arms of the university, the research arm and the academics. So undergraduate research, for example, used to be run by the provost's office. Now it's in our research and economic development. We have two of our units are under the provost. Two or three of us are under research and economic development. And then as someone asked on the chat, we're also under the COI. So we really are across the university, and it's really nice. It helps us understand how units operate. So I think when we're in our silos, we don't necessarily realize that the way we're operating might be very different from someone else. And so then when we reach out, it can cause frustrations, or there can be gaps in understanding one another. And I think that understanding those things helps a lot, especially when we have so many people in the Research Alliance who work with everybody on campus in some way. We work with staff across campus. We work with undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, faculty. We have emphases on mentoring, teaching. It all sort of happens. And so we're really learning a lot, right? So when someone who works on grant proposals learns more about how faculty are teaching in their classrooms, it helps everyone. Nicole actually spoke with a faculty member yesterday who's new. He'd been at the Wilderness Society for 20 years or so and just came to MSU. And he was making a comment about how, when you first get to a university or a new job, it can feel sort of like you're in a dark room with like a headlamp, and you could only see what you're shining your light on. And we agreed that that's a great technology because our goal is to light up the room for MSU researchers. So they can look around and see everything that's available, not just this one thing where they've directed their headlamp. Next slide. So in order to make all these things happen, we've been working as a group to figure out the best ways to operate and how we're going to work together, how we're going to stay focused. It's really easy for us in the Research Alliance. We all get along. So it's great to think, oh, we all get along. We're doing so much because we see each other and we get along great. And then we're like, wait, are we actually following through on a lot of our objectives and things that we say we want to accomplish? And so we have had a pretty formal decision-making structure, and we've even divided that up based on topics. So we have one about how we're going to utilize space and how we're going to answer needs such as like, I need more lamps or more extension cords. I mean, these little things we have to figure out. But then also we have created, shared goals and objectives that we review every year. And we've come up with a process for how we're gonna revisit those things, keep ourselves accountable, change them as new things arise. We do have a member who actually works for the Center for Faculty Excellence, staff member who is a 0.2 FTE for the Research Alliance, just to coordinate things like, hey, we all share a printer and like who's changing the toner, or hey, who's making all the arrangements for the many workshops that happen in this space, who's in charge of that calendar. We needed someone for some of that, and that has worked out really well. Next. Okay, so things we've collaborated on and ways that we've made connections happen. These are just some examples. We don't have every single thing listed. But for example, Jason's unit, Rhodes, the Center for Faculty Excellence, and Nicole's, the ORD, have developed this, search application to identify mentoring communities that connect people across organizations. They've created a partnership database to capture outreach, promote community engagement. I actually hit Jason up for something similar, just for a personal thing. My nephew wants to research somewhere else. He's currently at University of Oregon. And I was like, oh, Jason, how can I find out, who collaborates between these institutions? And I wouldn't have even known that I could look into this if I didn't work with Jason, if I didn't cross paths with Jason periodically, because computers and the library are not where I spend my time otherwise. So little things like that can be small, they can be huge, depends on the scope of what we're looking into. We have had these really spectacular grant writing boot camps that the Office of Research Development and Center for Faculty Excellence have run. We have also seen these boot camps be offered interinstitutionally across the state. The Office of Research Development did that. So I think when you find yourself in a collaborative environment where we're trying to reach across units, it can spread to reaching across institutions. You develop a new mentality. And then we have a lot of workshops and events, research development days, early learning communities, mentorship and communication workshops. I think mentorship workshops are a really great example of how the Research Alliance and the fact that we sort of, like I said, bridge between these parts of the university can really show up, because we have these mentorship workshops we'll run with faculty members, mostly new, but some veteran faculty members who want to brush up on things. And our graduate students are in these workshops. We're talking about mentoring undergrads. We're mentoring graduate students. Grad students are mentoring undergrads. Grad students are being mentored. All of these things get addressed, and that covers research and academics. Because a lot of these graduate students who are being mentored by faculty are also being mentored as they TA, as they teach. So it's really been nice to see certain places where a lot of these units that are in the Research Alliance come together in specific events. Next. Oh, a few more here, which we've already mentioned.
Yeah.
AI and research, no one's talking about it. No one cares. Kidding. That's been like the big focus, a very large focus in the last, I would say, few years, actually, and gaining momentum, as I'm sure it is with all of you. So we're bringing together interested groups, faculty to talk about this, committees that have been created to guide how we want to proceed at MSU and keeping up with what's going on at our institutions. Trying to make sure that everyone is, what would be the word, Jason? Everyone's at the forefront of this.
Just having a healthy skepticism of the technology and recognizing where it has utility in research. I think that's that's a goal,
Yeah. Okay.
cut through the hype.
And then finally, we have identified very much wanting to participate in faculty recruitment and retention. Some of that has come out of the workshops we've offered. Like Nicole met with this new researcher and, we had the headlamp comparison and we're like, gosh, how can we turn the lights on a little bit more for new faculty as they're coming to campus? And how can we show what we offer as part of our recruitment when faculty are interested in MSU but not sure yet? So we've been participating in candidate interviews where we'll discuss supports. We've been involved in new faculty orientation multiple times. We don't just meet with new faculty once. And that goes beyond just even the Center for Faculty Excellence's new faculty orientation. So that's something that we are excited about and I think quite proud of.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll finish us up here. Next slide. So we were recently asked by our research council just last week, where do we see the Research Alliance going next year and 5 years? And it was hard for us to come up with a concrete answer because so much of what we have done has been dynamic and organically emerging based on what the researchers at our institution are needing, based on what the technology is doing, based on what the student needs are. So we have these more general guiding principles, I would say, of a growth mindset and continuing to evolve. So Anna talked to you about some of the shared work that we have. We'll continue to do a lot of those programs and workshops in the background, but we don't know yet what other future work will look like because we don't know where the technology is going, what new technology is coming, what equipment needs there will be, and so on and so forth, where the federal funding landscape is going. It's all very evolving and mysterious at this point. So just a commitment to continue strengthening collaborations with our Research Alliance members, and also this question of who else, if anyone, should be a part of the Research Alliance? How do you decide who is an Alliance member when there are many more aspects of research, such as like sponsored programs or tech transfer, or whoever who could really be a part of this group? And then another thing is continuing to create a strong, well-defined identity on campus. I think, as Jason was saying earlier, it's not like someone shows up and is like, I'm here to work with the Research Alliance. That's not really how it happens. We present ourselves as members of the Alliance, but I don't know that we are known as the Research Alliance per se. So wanting to create more of that collective brand instead of just highlighting our individual units and like, yes, we work together, but becoming more of a known entity on campus, I would say. And then to the prompt we had for this talk about what are how do we formally coordinate services and supports? You've heard about the shared work we do, the joint programming, the co-location and referrals of how, we can easily just walk someone down to the other side of the room to talk with another unit or do a warm handoff email. But we don't yet have a formalized workflow per se, a formal structure for how someone would work with us across the entire life cycle. So I think that'll always be something that we're working on as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, we are very happy to take any questions about the Research Alliance that the group has, and thank you for your attention.
Yeah. And we did have these leading questions if there is sort of silence or if you're, but we can go wherever you want to go with the rest of this conversation.
Jason, I think you might be the best person to answer Carl's question. Can you comment on whether, to what degree your computational research resources have been adopted and used to any significant level across all disciplines?
Let me see that one. I'm going to stop
Okay.
sharing.
I see myself really big on your screen.
Yeah, I stopped. Did I stop sharing?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good, good. This is also probably best answered by, I just want to see it in the chat. Can you comment on Carl? This is a wonderful question. It's also probably best answered by Coltran, who's not in the room, but I will do my best. Can you comment whether across all disciplines?
So one thing I would say is that RCI, before joining the Research Alliance, was located solely off campus. And so that's not necessarily a huge deal when you're dealing with just a lot of online resources. However, because they now have an on-campus presence, they regularly have in-person consultations with students, grad students, faculty who are learning how to use Tempest, or, they're doing workshops in the workshop space now, where that would have been much more of a hurdle for them to book space in the university and not have a dedicated area for those consultations. So I know that has been a major factor for them, just having that presence on campus in terms of increasing who works with them and who even knows about them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also do think the Coltran did a presentation last Friday. It was part of our AI and research series, and he talked a lot about which disciplines or domains were part of. He featured like 3 or 4 projects, everything from like, we live in the Rocky Mountain West, everything from like wildfire management and forecasting to just generally precision agriculture, because again, we are an ag and a land grant university. But those tended to be, Carl, the examples that I saw, and generally the ones that are using the HPC, or which is the resource Tempest that Nicole mentioned, tend to be more on the domains that need really technical instrumentation. I won't necessarily say STEM, but across disciplines, I don't, and maybe Nicole and Anna can contribute here too. I don't think we're seeing as much of maybe humanities walking in the, in terms of like using the Research Alliance resources, and I don't think you're seeing humanities really using high performance computing.
I don't think they're
So
using high performance
go ahead.
computing as much, but I do think that they are, at least through us, using the
You
Research Alliance quite a bit.
Right, and that you do see them inside
But
your
we're working on bringing
what
more.
right.
Yeah.
And whether it's mentoring or students coming from humanities disciplines to do undergraduate research, you're seeing some of that. But Carl, I did so kind of answered your question, but we can also bring it to Coltran and make sure you get a better answer if you want that.
And it looks like we have Kyle has a question.
Yeah, I think Katya might be first.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kyle. I have 2 quick questions. A, how do you keep your staff up to the speed with new technology. So AI, big thing, GPU computing. So how do you make sure that your staff has enough knowledge to continue to support the research? And the second question is, do you do, or how do you do enable collaboration between the faculty? Again, if I take that AI or GPU computing as an example, we have examples where a person from department, generally non-GPU, not AI departments, say health, comes to us and say, well, I have an idea of something using AI for but I don't know how can I find a faculty that has some sort of knowledge that can collaborate with me on the project?
So I can take a stab at answering your questions. I would say, for me personally, so I'm in research development. I am not in any way high tech AI educated. However, we've had a lot of consultants wanting to work with us and say, hey, I have this AI technology. It can help you write more grants, faster grants, better grants. And Jason, talking about healthy skepticism, I'd worked with him enough to have that healthy skepticism and come to Jason and say, okay, talk to me about what this technology actually can do. And Jason, right down the hall, was able to give me that primer, that knowledge that I wouldn't necessarily have the time to go study myself. And so I think that that is just a great way that the co-location, the physical co-location, keeps us educated and at the top of our game. And I think conversely, Jason was putting together has put together some grants that we have talked about and worked with, and he's come to me and said, okay, what's the state of the federal funding landscape, so that we're not having to all
Mhm.
look up the same information and learn the same thing, but really collectively pool our expertise. So I think
Mhm.
that that's been really valuable. That's just my perspective on that question. And then the second question about facilitating collaborations between faculty. The Research Alliance space isn't just a space for us, but we also see it as a community hub for the researchers and students across campus. And so not only do we use our physical space, but we have had joint interdisciplinary events. So for example, our College of Education, Health, and Human Development collaborated with our College of Nursing, and they brought faculty members from across the two colleges as part of a mixer around these broad topics that their researchers could work on and meet each other and get to know one another. And we regularly host faculty writing groups. And so it's also become a home for researchers who are looking for that outside of their own departments or even their own colleges. And that's something we've really fostered both, intentionally through those mixer events, through interdisciplinary workshops that we've hosted, but also just providing this space for them to come to and naturally meet one another.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And the technical question, and you didn't see in the pictures, but there is like a comfy sort of lounge. There's a couch and a lounge space, kind of like as you move in. So the room is starting to feel. We want to get art on the walls. We still got to get that art on the walls. I always say that, but we're starting to make it more and more. Just feel like a space that has sort of a soul of sorts.
Sure.
The technical component, Katya, we've hired technical people, and the team that I work on is been pretty interested in and built functional specialties around data management, scholarly communication, data science. So that's one way. But I would also note that, like on days like today, on Thursdays, RCI runs office hours, and those office hours are for learning. So there are a number of student tutors that will, like, if you come in and you want to know how do you set up a large language model, or how do you get onto a performance computing machine, that ability to learn is always there. And you'll see student tutors from research cyber infrastructure sitting with faculty members or grad students or undergrads and keeping that learning going. So that's kind of external learning itself, but the groups have hired technical people to keep us to make sure we have facilities that way so that we know how to answer those technical questions. And I hope that helps.
Kyle.
Yeah, mine is a kind of a piggyback to that question. And what metrics did you identify that allowed enough bandwidth in your student, undergrad, graduate, and faculty, and as well as administrative staff, for this not to be just a checkbox that you said we were able to accomplish it, but to be enriching and for it to be a thriving environment for all parties involved?
Mhm. Metrics questions. Does anybody want to?
I can address that a little bit.
Okay,
Kyle,
let's start.
it's such a good question. And
Mhm.
we just went over our goals and objectives within the last couple months. Summertime is a good time for us to have an annual retreat where we revisit everything, and we've done that.
Mhm.
And we had discussions about assessment and some of these details and tracking who comes in the Research Alliance. Is this what you're talking about? Like who comes in and out and how we know if things are actually working and enriching?
Yeah, and the
Right.
percentage of your undergraduate to graduate, and this kind of how the foundational structure looked like for that to be a successful enriching project.
Yeah. And it was a really hard question. Nicole and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but on our individual units, we do quite a bit of assessment. And then for the Research Alliance as a whole, we've been having these discussions, and I can't say that we have an awesome solution yet to figure it out.
Mhm.
I think that we can talk. We have lots of stories and we have lots of examples that we can give, but in terms of putting it into numbers, this has been a topic of conversation for us as well.
Mhm.
Unless something happened that I'm missing, Jason and Cole, but yeah, that idea of how do we translate what we know is happening into something that we can show beyond our stories and anecdotes.
Mhm. I mean,
And
part
of
of that
course,
was.
again, back to our individual units are tracking and assessing.
Mhm.
But to show that the Research Alliance, we're still working on it.
Mhm.
I think a major thing we can point to now is the shared programming that wouldn't have happened without the Research Alliance, right? So, we wouldn't have necessarily done like an AI and grant writing module without having that expertise right there and Jason's willingness to collaborate
Mhm.
on that. So I think I mean, maybe we would have. There's not a true counterfactual you can point to, right? But I think we
Mhm.
could say it was much easier to get that done because it was serving both of our units' missions as well as serving the Research Alliance's mission. And that is definitely something that we had to be intentional about because when we first got into the space 3 or so years ago, it felt like that was the accomplishment of like, okay, we're all together now. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, we all sort of just went and did our own things because it felt like we had accomplished the Research Alliance by just co-locating. And then we
Mhm.
had to have a little reality check of like, wait a second, we need to be more intentional with this and not just be physically located, but actually, ensure that we are collaborating with the Research Alliance. So there's always that balance between what our individual units need to do, what's like the background foundational stuff, and then what more can we do together that we wouldn't be doing just acting alone.
Mhm. I would
You
say
know,
we've also. Oh, go ahead.
no, I just was going to say we have time for a few more questions.
Okay.
We're down to just a few more minutes.
Mhm. I think we've started to craft that story a bit more. We did a joint annual report for the first time this year, just to sort of look at what we had for initiatives, how we met each one, because we have this admin, we call them the client group, and that tends to be it's like head CIO, vice president for research, provost, I'm missing somebody, or maybe that's, and Dean of the library. Um, but they're starting to, they want to hear more about us, what's working, what's not. So that's that question of metrics is coming forward, and we're starting to write to it and move beyond just stories,
Right.
stories itself. And then the conditions were there. You heard Anna talk about the undergraduate research investment, and then the high performing research university. Those two conditions set us up for the first, or the long game around the idea. Like, we knew if we just kept with it, we were going to get there.
Sorry
Yeah.
to hit you with the hard question that you're in the middle of working through.
No, it's great. I
So,
love it.
so I see Jacqueline had a comment that she was making just about how they have connected. They've connected with their digital humanities center. So that's always good to hear. These new technologies are bringing us together. I've heard the same thing from the digital humanities groups. Like, they want to start educating their faculty on how to bring down an LLM, how to get those things organized in your data sets, and I know we've been engaging with our supercomputer to encourage them maybe to change some of their training so that it can include the language that somebody from the digital humanities would understand better. Python is used differently, and it just needs to be taught different, so those are all great partnerships. And as you've evolved over the last few years, have you grown your stakeholders? I haven't heard you talk about working with the CISO's office. That's something that's super strong on our end, is the research security piece is really bringing us together as much as the AI stuff is. Or how have you seen kind of those stakeholders come out and work with you?
Oh, go ahead, Anna.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
well, really quickly, I was just going to say that it's another way that, like I said, this Research Alliance bridges the arms. Nicole and I report to the Vice President for Research, and in all of our biweekly meetings and monthly meetings, we are also with our integrity and compliance group, for example. So we get to hear a lot, and then we can bring that back to the Research Alliance. So in terms of like how we all connect, it happens on the provost side too, Center for Faculty Excellence in the library, all the time. Growing our stakeholders, I think that our trainings, I was just thinking about Jacqueline's comment as I wrote down, trainings, consultations for high performance computing and humanities. When we are together, we remember to invite everyone. And I know that sounds silly, but often on college campuses, especially the bigger they get, and we are growing rapidly, it's easy to leave someone out that you didn't mean to. So if we have trainings, workshops, for example, in high performance computing and humanities, which I suddenly love thinking about, we might start with faculty, but we will get to graduate students and undergrads and staff, because we're all represented. And so however something like that might be set up, we end up catching most disciplines and most people who are interested in something like that. Nicole, you were going to say something.
Yeah, that was a great point, Anna. I was just gonna say, the Alliance is a hub and spoke model, right? Of where we have our core hub of the participating units, but then I know like RCI is working very closely with research security. We are building out infrastructure to be able to handle lots of top secret information and work with our applied research lab. And DoD is our largest funder on campus. They fund about 47% of our research at this point in time. And so even if it's not one of us directly working with research security, by that hub and spoke model, and as Anna said, being able to translate it through the core alliance, it does filter through. And I think just, that awareness and that dissemination across everything we're doing is really helpful and valuable.